Joining me today for a talk is Jim Gray, vocalist of Brisbane, Australia's Caligulas Horse. The band has a new album out called Bloom. So thanks for taking the time to talk with We Love Metal today.
No worries, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Hey, I've very much enjoyed listening to Bloom over the last couple of weeks. The one word that keeps coming to my mind to describe it is dynamic. Both in intensity and, in the way the songs are structured. How do you guys see Bloom kind of as a whole product?
We always try to have that sort of element of dynamic in our sound, a little bit of, light and shade and sort of movement in the sound, between tones, between keys, that sort of thing. Because we're trying to create a bit of a journey, within each song. If you go into a song and you get kind of one flavor the whole time, or even an album and get, one flavor the whole time, and it's sort of a tiring listen for me. And because we're not writing genre music, we're not like and I'm not like shitting on metalcore here, but like if you go in, there's a lot of metalcore bands that make a particular sound that is perhaps sort of interchangeable. You could be listening to any band and it's about the same. But I think with progressive music, we try to create something that is our own and that is, a journey in each time. So we very deliberately with Bloom wanted to create something that was dynamic and energetic, but also colorful and bright.
Mm-hmm.
There was a step towards that color away from our second album, River's End, which was a lot darker.
Okay. I'm guilty. I have not heard it. River's
End. I highly recommend it. I'm particularly proud of that one. But yeah, no, definitely give it a listen. Just, if only to hear the difference between River's End and Bloom, I think you'd be interested.
Okay. Yeah. Nice to see how a band, some bands make the same album over and over, and that's what they're known for. AC/DC, another Australian band, you pretty much know what you're going to get with them. But kind of a debate that goes on around our blog is, is that okay, or is it okay for a band to make those changes?
Well, I mean, I think, like, personally, that it's up to the artist. It's like
sure.
Like with Opeth and the changes that they've made in their sound over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a lot of people that's polarized. Some people absolutely love it, some people absolutely hate it. But I sort of see that as almost irrelevant because it's quite clearly the music that Mikael Åkerfeldt and Opeth want to make.
Yep.
So it's entirely their choice. So sure, AC/DC might be doing the same sound, but that's their sound and that's what they want to do. But I feel that you can kind of have it both ways. You can bridge both worlds there by having a consistent approach to your music and a consistent sort of ideology, but develop your music to be reflecting, where you are at the time, and that will always mean that your music is constantly changing and being influenced by the music that you're listening to, by the kind of person that you are, and by the kind of attitude that you have. And so, it'll always be growing and changing if you leave yourself open to that.
Sure. Yeah. Your personal situation is always going to change. So, it's going to show up in your music. Bloom for me is a strong album front to back. And though, I like it all, I always tend to gravitate towards a track or two. And this time it's Marigold.
True.
Can you, discuss that song both musically and lyrically?
Sure. I'm actually really glad you enjoy that one, man, because that's personally, it's that one's really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think musically, that track and later on in the album, the song Turntale, really kind of capture the balance of what our intentions were for Bloom within just a singular song. In that they have that bright color and that energy, but at the same time, they take the little journey. You know what I mean? And they reflect the live energy that we bring to a live show,
mm-hmm.
but they still have that dynamic that we were talking about. So Marigold, for me, like, it was originally sort of, I wanted to allude to the myth of King Midas, and most people are familiar with the Midas touch. You turn everything to gold, that sort of thing.
Yep.
And I wanted to just subtly refer to that and use that as a metaphor for the fact that that it's all fool's gold. No matter what you're looking at, it's all fool's gold. And you can't You can't take gold with you into death. You can't do that, and there's no point. So we should be focusing on what's important and celebrating one another, and certainly not judging each other by what we own or what we earn. So I think it's a really kind of important message in that one for me personally. So I really love to sing that one. It's really enjoyable for me.
Okay, nice. I always like to get that insight on what artists were thinking when they've crafted a song and the ideas behind it. You talked about the kind of the brightness of the album, and that takes me to the album art. It's a little bit different for a metal album, maybe not a progressive metal album, but can you talk about that a little bit? It looks like stained glass, essentially.
That was we took a couple of ideas, or at least themes, to our artist, Chris Stevenson Mangos, who is an absolute genius and a really, really lovely guy to work with. And he basically took the brief that we gave him, which was similar to the brief that we gave ourselves. You know, we wanted the album to reflect growth and life. We wanted it to be exhilarating and uplifting and carry a positive message. And we approached him with that, and he had the demos of the album that we put together, and from that he constructed all of these visual ideas. And I love this album cover. I think it's absolutely stunning, and it captures that movement and growth and sort of the balance between life and death very nicely as well. And it is very different, but like for me, I wouldn't really class Caligulas Horse as a metal band, sorry, even a prog metal band. I think sort of we're bridging a couple of gaps there. So there are metal elements to the sound, but I think we get away with a lot more fruitiness than the standard kind of prog metal band allows.
Okay, that kind of covered my next question about I in order to provide an accurate or a review of music and let the listener know, let the fan know, hey, here's kind of what you're getting into with this. I'm probably guilty of classifying bands maybe in a way they wouldn't necessarily agree with, but I would call you guys prog metal. But you've already said you really don't see yourselves as that. So.
I mean, you wouldn't be wrong in doing that. Like it definitely falls within the category of that. But I think we also drop into enough other camps that, I mean, for example, like we refer to ourselves as progressive alternative rock. You know? I mean, whatever that means, But I think partly we use that moniker because it's sort of a broader term than progressive metal, because in a modern sense, prog metal seems to be falling into some habits and certain things that people go into expecting a certain sound out of prog metal. And so there are a bunch of diehard fans that love that sound or that production style or that vocal style or whatever else, and they go in expecting that from prog metal, and when they don't hear that, they hate it.
Yeah.
It's not just that so they have their expectations. And so if we come at it from a progressive alternative rock kind of attitude, then, yes, people who are into prog metal are open to it because there are elements of their sound in there, but we're not trying to be the thing that they want. Not to mention that on the other spectrum of things, some people hear the word metal and immediately turn off.
Oh, sure.
You would have experienced this. Like people say, "Oh no, I don't dig on metal or screamo or whatever they call it," which is funny to me still. But I never do any screaming on the album. My voice is pretty sweet, I suppose, for a metal singer. So, we'd be closing the door on a whole bunch of people who might really enjoy our music if we defined ourselves that way. So it's an interesting one, and it's fairly arbitrary, but interesting one to talk about nonetheless.
Okay. Hey, tell me the story behind the band's name. Caligulas Horse is a figure that's somewhat well known, but how did you guys come about that?
Well, Sam and I are both kind of nuts for ancient stuff. Me in particular, because I'm actually a student of ancient history and classical languages. And the story of Emperor Caligula, I think he was threatening to make his horse a consul or something, but it was meant to mess with the Senate, who he had nothing but disdain for. I think it might have been a rumor started by Suetonius, and I'm not sure it's actually true, but we thought it was a funny story, and that was actually going to be the original title for the first album when it was just going to be a one-off release.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we decided we were going to put a band together, we came up with a different title and decided to call the band Caligulas because it's funny. And I don't think you're going to come across another band with that name.
No, absolutely not. Okay. Hey, some personal things, Jim. Not too personal though. What was your introduction to music? How did you find yourself becoming a singer?
An interesting one. I never really sang when I was very young, and when I was about 9, my parents decided they wanted to send me to private school here in Australia, and which is an extremely expensive endeavor, and of course they didn't have the funds for that sort of thing. So they put me in for all of these scholarship programs, and so we were attempting to get some kind of academic scholarship to help me go to this school that had a bit of prestige, and then as a joke almost, they kind of threw me into this scholarship program for, well, there was a church choir, sure, we'll throw them in there and get them to audition and have a go and see how they go. So I actually got in, and that's what ended up helping pay for my school fees for my whole education. But it also meant that every single morning before school, we'd have a couple of hours of choir rehearsal. Every Friday after school, there was a couple of hours. There were weddings on Saturdays and 2 services on Sundays to sing. So basically from the age of 9 onwards, I was just getting daily drills on good vocal technique and singing, and that happened through my entire development into adulthood. So yeah, I've been basically singing since I was 9. I've studied classical and jazz voice at university as well. Performed in a whole bunch of different styles, and basically apply the things that I've learned from that into original music, because I think that's the best way to write interesting music, I suppose, is to not shut yourself off from different avenues of inspiration and different stylistic approach.
Sure. The expansiveness of all those influences certainly can be used as a positive way to write, but sometimes it's overdone. But
I agree. I mean, it depends on whether you're sort of arbitrarily placing them in a song, because it's like with anything, like with progressive music, it's quite easy to write with technical sections for technicality's sake, and that's something that we're avoiding with Caligulas Horse. And by the same token, if I want to use, like, I do a sort of moderately okay kind of throat sing kind of thing, and I've only used it once or twice, usually live, but it's not just a tool that I'm going to arbitrarily place in a song just because I feel like showing off. So if it's not servicing the song, or it's not helping to pass the message or tell the story of the song, then it doesn't go in.
Right. Okay. I want to ask you about outside of music interests. Any kind of interesting hobbies or things you like to do?
Well, like I said before, I'm studying. I'm learning classical Latin, and we'll be starting to learn ancient Greek next year. I'm absolutely nuts for ancient Roman history, just purely because the narrative that we have is so good, based on the amount of primary sources that we have from that particular era. I know that Sam Vallon, our guitarist, is doing his PhD right now, and actually, this one, I want to spread this one as far and wide as possible, that our bassist, Dave, once ran for Lord Mayor of the city of Brisbane as an independent. So I basically keep referring to Dave as the hero that Brisbane deserves.
But didn't elect, unfortunately?
No, but he gave it a good go.
Okay, so maybe he has a future someday in the political spectrum there.
I can see it happening so clearly in my mind.
Well, we'll keep an eye out for that.
Please do.
Okay. Back to the music part of it. You guys, have you played outside of Australia?
No, not yet. We've done extensive touring in Australia on the back of our first 2 albums, especially the second album, River's End, because that's where a lot of the audience that we have was based off. There's a lot of crowd favorites on that one. But our first stepping outside of Australia, we're actually going on a tour of Australia with Tesseract in next week,
nice.
Which is going to be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to that. And basically immediately after that, we're taking our first trip to Europe.
Okay.
Alongside a Norwegian band called Shining, who are doing quite well and have a really interesting sound. off their new release, International Black Jazz Society. And yeah, so I think we're playing, 26 shows over about 28 days and touring through most of mainland Europe and going to the UK as well. Yeah, we're all really excited about it just purely because it's the longest tour that we've ever been involved with, because you can't do that length of tour here in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Not really if your audience is in metropolitan areas. And B, just because we actually do have, quite an established and passionate fan base, in sort of the underground scenes in these areas that we're going to. So there are a lot of people contacting us and saying they're very excited to come to the shows, asking for their favorite songs, that sort of thing. And we're just really excited to get over there and meet them and to have our first tour of Europe be that successful. So I'm really happy about it.
All right. Are you going to happen to get to Greece during that? To Greece?
No, I don't think we're playing this time.
I thought maybe that would, you try to get there for your experiences. Or...
We are playing a couple of shows in Italy, but unfortunately not going any further south than Bologna. So there's plenty there to see, but it would have been nice to hit Rome, but maybe next time.
Oh, sure. Okay. Having played Australia, what has been your most memorable live experience?
Actually, this is a good one. This is actually a one-off show that we played in Brisbane. It wasn't part of a tour, but we supported Opeth at the Eaton's Hill Hotel, which is a beautiful venue. And I remember standing on stage and looking out over the audience and sort of sharing something a little bit personal, because the previous night my daughter had been born, and and I remember just I was buzzing the whole time, because one, Opeth are like one of my favorite bands of all time, so it was really exciting to be sharing stage with them. But also massive life-changing adrenaline, and so sharing the story with everyone. I can't think of a better way to celebrate the fact that my daughter was born last night. And the chorus of no was so adorable. From this room full of bearded dudes, it was all these massive Opeth fans. They're all in their metal shirts and they're getting pumped for the Opeth show. And I start talking about the fact that I'm happy to be a dad, and all they do is applaud and isn't that lovely? And that sound will haunt my dreams forever. I think that was the funniest thing. So yeah.
No, that's a great reception, and kind of shows that metal fans might have a hardened exterior, but some of the nicest folks you meet are into the genre anyway.
That's definitely been my experience. Yeah.
Okay. So, hey, any chance of a North American tour?
Yes.
All right.
Short answer, yes. We definitely want to make that happen. There's nothing set in stone at the moment that I can promise. But at this stage, we are hoping to be in the USA, within the next year, and if not in the next 2 years. So it's a huge goal for us, because again, like I said with Europe, that underground following that has been with us since the start, there's a really strong and growing and quite vocal group of people that are supporting us in the United States as well. Pretty much anytime we're on social media, anytime we're making announcements or sharing new material, there's this influx of the comment, come to Ohio, that sort of thing. So loads of people are interested in seeing us in the United States, and it's definitely a pipe dream one for us. So we're going to make that happen for sure.
Okay, great. Looking forward to that, and we'll be sure to push that one when it happens.
Please.
So final question, and it may not be completely accurate, but our website is called We Love Metal. First of all, do you love metal? And if so, why?
I love metal even if I don't enjoy the music sometimes.
Okay.
I love that metal exists. I love that it's this thing that, like you said before, it appears on the outside to have this hard shell, but it's a part of something extremely positive. It's a part of a cathartic experience for people.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people who are on the outside, they hear it, and all they hear is the aggression or the intensity of it. And they don't understand its function within society, and that is that it's we're not screaming at each other, we're screaming with each other. It's a really important thing. And so, I love metal for both what it is and how it sounds. I love it.
All right, great. Thanks a lot, Jim. I appreciate it. And anybody out there listening, be sure to check out Bloom. It's a quality album, and I'll have a review up for that soon as well.
Cool beans. Thanks for having me, Bill. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks.